Hi, we are at the fag end of an expedition that I, for one, did not expect. I came here thinking something else. I came here as someone else. And now I'm taking a whole lot of memories, a whole lot of action points, and a whole new person back to where I came from. That's Bangalore. Hi, my name is Anil Srivatsa, and I am one of the team members of the 2041 expedition in 2014. We do this every year, and I say we because I feel part of the family already. 2041 does this Antarctic expedition every year. And the man behind this expedition and the reasons for this expedition and the man himself is Robert Swan. Robert Swan began 2041 some 20 plus years ago, but I will have him fill in the details for you. But with me, one-on-one, is Robert Swan. I would just like to introduce him as a fantastic human being, but his achievements, which, like an iceberg, lie 1/8 below his surface. What he shows us is just 1/10 of it. I'm sorry about the math, but 1/10 of it shows up on top, and the rest of it is so buried we've got to fish it out. He doesn't talk much about it, but we'll make him tell us why, when, and a little bit about himself. Robert Swan, thank you for joining us on
thanks very much.
News 9
We've survived.
Bangalore.
We've survived so far.
So, Robert, can you tell me how this journey began? What is 2041, and about you? I mean, I can't describe you as a professional. You, from what little I know, from what I heard during the expedition, you're an explorer. To us, you're an explorer of our times.
Well, I think the last great exploration left on Earth is not people like me walking to the North and South Poles. It's to survive on Earth. That's truly the last great exploration, and I'm on that exploration, and you're part of it. And our great team here of 80 people from 28 different nations, we're on it. We're on this mission. And this began for me a really long time ago when I saw a film, and that's why it's been great to have lots of really good young people on our expedition this year. Because it's all about dreams, and I had a dream to become the first person to walk to both poles, and after a hell of a struggle, excuse the language.
But what made you think of doing something like that?
Because I think that Antarctica and all the stories of exploration they engaged me as a young person, and I walked to both poles not because I wanted to save the planet. I walked to both poles because it went down well with girls at parties.
But there
was no big picture except to do it then.
But putting things down in context for the age group in India, we are talking one-on-one with Robert Swan for News 9 live on board the vessel Sea Spirit. Now, most Indian kids your age, when you were deciding to go to the South Pole or walk to the North Pole, we're thinking about careers, we're thinking about professionalism and all of that. Were you ever pressured by your parents to go to college and finish up and then get a degree and become a professional leader in some field or the other?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I've spent a lot of time of my life in India, so I understand often the pressures that young people face in India. And I was very lucky because I was the youngest in my family in the UK, youngest of 7. So by the time I came along, people weren't really too bothered about, what people were going to do. My brothers all faced that problem. I could have said, I'm going to swim to the moon, and my family had gone, oh, just do it, right? So I was lucky being the youngest. And I understand those pressures, and I respect those pressures in India, because, Indian young people are amazing on how much they're determined, how much they take their academics seriously. I'm super impressed by that. And every single young person from India on our expedition together with you has shown me that. I think what's important is that there must be a balance. And I've seen that balance on this expedition as these very academic, amazing young people have come down with you on the expedition, and I've seen them open up to many other issues apart from doing really well and getting 95% on every exam they ever take. But I was lucky not to have those pressures. Of course, my father, to his dying day, said, "Rob, when are you going to get a proper job?" And Dad, I never have got a proper job, but somehow I've kept the mission going.
But speaking of the proper job, from being an explorer, how did this become your full-time occupation, obsession, if I should call it, and your passion? What is this passion of yours that became your...
we have one place left on Earth, the Antarctic, that no one owns, and it's the last chance on Earth to show future generations that we did care. And because no one owns it, and because, as you now know, it's a hell of a long way away and it's a bit rough getting there, maybe we could preserve one place on the planet, and that's my dream and my passion. To do that, I must engage young people, business people, to become champions on that issue. And as you know, there are 28 nations on this ship, and that's great. That for me is very exciting, because we need the world to protect Antarctica. We can't just say, well, India do it, or Qatar do it, or London to do it, or America to do it. No, it must be a global effort to save the last truly global place left on Earth. And if you really get to the inside of me, it's that global thing that interests me most. And I've spent a lot of time in India, a lot of time in China, a lot of time, I've been to 168 countries. I've tried to go around the world and get young people inspired on this issue.
So 2041, if someone were to come and, obviously, like me, I found out about 2041 after I heard somebody speak about it. Now, via this TV channel, I'm sure a lot of young and not so young people will come in contact with the organization called 2041 that you founded. What will they need to know, apart from what they find on the internet, as I found? What is the soul of 2041?
The soul of 2041 is to do with the fact that Antarctica is this place a long, long way from anywhere, which you visited. Very few people do get the chance to visit, and we need to look after it. But you can do that from home. So one of the reasons that I have hope for Antarctica is that if we are using renewable energy and looking after energy in the real world better, especially in India, because you're one of the biggest growing countries on the planet, there'll be no need to go and exploit Antarctica for fossil fuels, to put drills and wells and go and wreck the place, because there'll be no need to do it. So, when I go around India, and we have some education stations in India that are running on renewable energy, one in the Pench Tiger Reserve, one up in Ladakh, in Leh. I want young people in India to know that I'm not saying don't grow as a country, don't create jobs, don't create wealth. As you know, in your great country, you've got 900 million people that are already really environmentally conscious, because they have 1 ton of carbon per person, as opposed to the other 400 million people in your country who are pretty bad on the environment, because they're wasting quite a lot of stuff. So
now, how does that compare to what happens with the rest of the world?
Well, I think
what's the average of?
I think the average is pretty much, on carbon. What that means is how much CO2 you produce a year. India averages as 1 ton. The United States is on 20 tons per person average. The UK is about 10. Australia's pretty bad, on about 18 tons per person. And globally, India's like nothing. But that doesn't mean to say that the 400 million people in India who are, if you like, better off, they're on a lot. And the super rich in India are way over 20 tons per person, miles over, with 5 cars, 5 drive-Rs, 5 houses, houses that are a size of, some entire flipping, high-rise tower in the middle of Bombay. There's just some quite crazy stuff, goes on in India, but that's fine. I think that India will find its way, and I think that young people, especially how clever they are, my feeling in India is that young people should not abandon India and go off to America to make millions of dollars. Why not stay in India and make millions of dollars? and get renewable energy going, get companies going, get businesses going, get people inspired. India should not, without sounding too odd, should not import the unhappiness of the West. And I think that a lot of young Indians are importing that unhappiness to be consumed by consuming, to feel that by having 5 telephones, an iPad, an iPhone, all this stuff is going to make them happy. And that's where the West and a lot of wealthy people in the Middle East, for example, I think are, the young people think that's what's going to make them happy, but it won't. It doesn't make you happy to have masses of stuff, and that's what I say.
So the message of 2041 you're trying to put out there with all that activism that you're doing and your travel around the world is to basically start giving the environment that we live in our own proximity, not Antarctica, so to speak, but in our own backyard, to be able to use it, conserve it, and live in harmony with it rather than exploit it and not renew it, to not help it regenerate itself, to protect us on this planet.
I think if we're looking after ourselves, we'll look after Antarctica. Simple as that. And Antarctica is a symbol that if we are in 2041, 27 years from now, still scrabbling after fossil fuels amongst all the penguins and the ice is melting, we've blown it. So Antarctica is a symbol to say to ourselves, hey, we need to be living a bit better in our own places, not using so many resources, not using so much fossil fuels, finding different types of energy, having a country like India grow, yes, but in the more sustainable way than we have done in the West, and Antarctica should be looked after. That's probably the underlying message of 2041.
We are talking one-on-one exclusively for News 9 in Bangalore. My name is Anil Srivatsa. With me is Robert Swan. I'm going to focus a little bit on Robert Swan, the explorer, because for us in the Indian context, we do not come across many people within our own communities that have done the things that him and predecessors before him have done, like exploring the world. So I'm going to focus a little bit on that aspect of your life, Robert, starting with your first bike ride. Now tell us about the crazy things that you've done that drive home a point. I know the cycling trip, the boat on land, walking to the North Pole, South Pole. I mean, just a little quick summary of your
I think I've
craziness.
been very lucky. Well, it's not crazy. I think half the world's starving and the rest of us trying to lose weight is crazy. What I've tried to do is to live my life not just for me, but at the same time do some things that I really wanted to do, and I will continue to do that, but try and give something back through it. So yeah, I rode a bicycle from Cape Town to Cairo the whole way through Africa when I was 18 on $400 in 8 months in money. That was pretty wild, believe you me. I have walked to both poles, north and south, for some reason. We're still working on why, and became the first person to do that. Recently in India, which is much more dangerous, I might say, than walking to both poles, bicycling through Africa, far more dangerous than anything I've ever done, is to bicycle 5,000 kilometers round the great nation of India, which, I'm still alive, yes, because that was pretty crazy.
We're on a boat, and you've done a lot of work on a boat. I mean, you're a sailor also.
I've sailed around the world, yeah. We've just been through a storm of 85 knots, gusting 85 knots, and I've been on a yacht in that, and believe you me, it was nice to be on a big ship. What's interesting about where I go and the sort of things I do is that they just remind you that we aren't in control. People are always saying to me, hey Rob, let's save the planet. The planet will look after itself. It's us that should worry, and this place is a hell of a lot stronger than we are, and at the rate we're going, the world would just say go away, and just wipe us out. Like, if you're in a huge storm, you know who's in charge, and it's not us, it's the storm. So I think I've gained a respect for our environment. I have certainly been lucky to travel all over the world and do some great things, but I don't really think I'm an explorer. I don't think I'm an adventurer. I'm just somebody who's tried to live their life, and you know, I have a great son, Barney, who you've met, and he's quite interested in doing some of the things that I'm doing, but again, perfecting it a bit, doing it for a better reason. You know, he's like you.
A purpose,
yeah, he's much more of a kind of radio guy, a film guy, you know, bringing some artistic stuff into the sort of things that I've done, and that's great for me. It's good that I've got a son who's interested in doing that, but making it more focused, bringing a much better message along.
Robert Swan, the first man to walk to the North Pole and to the South Pole, is getting ready to go back there in 2015, this time with a purpose, with a little more focus. And what would that be, Robert?
Well, I think in life, you know, you should always walk your own talk, okay? And, you know, it's 25, nearly 30 years since I became the first person to walk to both poles, and you know, I've been talking about preservation of Antarctica, I've been talking about the use of renewable energy in order to protect Antarctica, so we don't need to go there. And I would like to just bring those two things together with one, you know, very big last expedition in Antarctica that's big. So we're returning to the South Pole 30 years on since we first arrived there on foot, and we're making the return journey from the South Pole, but this time a journey that's never been done, where we will survive only on the use of renewable energy, which, sitting here a year and a half before that expedition, is still pretty much on the edge of what's possible to achieve. However, our world needs to look at our survival more. You know, it's our survival here on Earth that's in question. So we need to take, our world needs to take the use of renewable technologies right to the edge of what's possible to survive on Earth. Our expedition is going to do the same. We're saying we've got to take renewable technologies right to the edge of what's possible for us to survive in minus 60,000 miles on foot. It's going to be pretty hard, but what's interesting is that the technology that we're going to use, we're starting to get that, we're starting to push the edge of it, and in December 2015 we're out there, we're doing it, and I would like lots of young people, especially in India, to follow our progress. The following year in 2016,
so you'd be blogging live from your expedition?
Well, live we hope, but we're also going to run a competition in India for a young Indian to join us the following year and perhaps become, you know, the first Indian, or certainly the first young Indian person to make a polar journey in Antarctica. And so we're going to have, you know, our return expedition in 2015, early 2016, and 2016-17 we're going to have a group of young people, certainly one from India, to join us to make a big journey in Antarctica again, using renewable energy again, and that young Indian guy or girl will return back to India as a kind of super champion on the whole issue of our survival on Earth.
Talking to News 9 one-on-one, that's Robert Swan, and I will be one of those trying to get on that 2015 polar expedition, and I hope you keep your eyes out to how you can be part of that as well. My name is Anil Srivatsa for News 9 TV with Robert Swan.
Thanks very much, good luck, and
Thanks, Robert.
good job on the expedition.